second question, more serious. Heading back, you brought up the leadership cohort,
Oh yeah.
the capstone work, and the question was around that. What was the value of the cohort to you in your role, and would you recommend it to others?
Oh my gosh, I couldn't recommend the leadership cohort enough. It's the leadership cohort was honestly like career changing in the fact that it was like working through it. The team who put that leadership cohort together did an amazing job. They really were inspiring, and all of you guys. I mean, that was kind of my first introduction to Resource X, where I was like, holy cow, these guys are on top of their game, and they're gonna make changes in the world. Like that was literally what I thought. And so they challenged me. You guys challenged me to um, think beyond what I was doing and really kind of think further. And that's where the physical endurance exercise came from. So
Mm-hmm.
that really brought the physical endurance exercise together, which brought the culture together and helped the culture kind of get back into the PBB mindset and kind of that future thinking mindset. And I would definitely recommend it for others.
We're gonna. I was just talking to Eric Heck this morning, and I know he has some plans to. We're gonna have another offering, so
Yes.
we'll be publishing some news on how anybody can get involved in that as well. But thanks for that perspective.
That's awesome. Yeah, it was also just to say too. I mean, it also opened my eyes to other communities like KCMO. Like, so if people don't know what the leadership cohort was, it was basically people from different communities around the country came together in a leadership cohort that was a virtual learning experience, and it was just like a leadership management um, techniques and how to run an organization and how to use the PBB tools to be a leader within your organization. And it was just really cool. And yeah, so I still keep in touch with people who I met in that cohort, even though I've never met them in real life, but yet we keep in touch.
Very cool. It's like cohorts. It's like this, the resource exchange. Man, there is something really powerful. It's like a band of brothers and
Yeah.
sisters of being able to go through these experiences together and build community when you're really trying to do important, compelling work. Brett, I was thinking, preparing for this, that the last time you and I saw each other in person was about a year ago, a little over a year ago. We have our annual Resource X Summit, and before COVID hit, this is our once a year opportunity to bring the community together and really celebrate wins. You, on behalf of Washington County, were one of 5 organizations who were recognized for achieving greater than 10% resource reallocation of your budget, which was completely awesome. And then you went on to make a presentation about an innovative approach called your fiscal endurance exercise. And I'd love for you to share, especially for those who weren't at the conference last year, what was your inspiration for that exercise, and where did you take it from the summit last year?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, the fiscal endurance exercise was really interesting, and that was totally inspired by. Well, it was kind of funny because I had just gotten done with my Master's of Public Administration capstone class, and then Resource X actually held a leadership cohort, right? And this was about maybe 6 months before the summit. So you guys held that leadership cohort, and it was your first one, and I was super inspired by it. But during it, you guys had us do another capstone, and I was like, I just got done doing a capstone for my grad school program. I got to do another capstone. But this one was really cool because it was applicable to real life, and I talked a lot with Josh, our county administrator at the time, now county executive, and he actually, we were talking about what we should do for capstone for this leadership cohort, and we were thinking like fleet management plan, some really practical things that just had to, like chores that had to get done around the county basically. But we were talking in his office, and on his whiteboard he had written My goal is to make Washington County the first in Wisconsin with a model for long-term fiscal sustainability and endurance with priorities with prioritized quality services for our citizens where employees want to work, people want to live, and businesses want to grow. And he's like, this is my goal. Like, this is what I want. And I was like, oh, let's go off that, you know? And so we kind of took that fiscal sustainability and endurance and we ran with it. And so in further conversations, we went through and started talking about how are we going to make our county fiscally sustainable? What happens when we hit a recession or when something goes wrong and we can't take out debt and we have nothing left to use for, you know, to run our county services. And so we ended up thinking, okay, let's use the PVB tool. Let's get department heads together, get them in the tool, and show them what the tool can actually do by putting them in a situation, a fiscal endurance exercise of repeating the 2008 recession. So when the crash happened, and in doing that, what happened? It was super interesting. We had basically we had like a month of department preparation where they would kind of get an email saying, okay, this is what's going to happen. We're going to have a simulation. We didn't tell them what it was, but we had them get into the tool and kind of work around in the PVB tool, getting used to it. And then they all came in one day and we said, okay, here's the situation. It was almost like when you know how cities do like the emergency drills where everyone gets in a room and there's like a tornado that hits over here and then there's a fire that hits over here. It was like that, except it was just with our fiscal scenario. And the fiscal scenario was this 2008 crisis. So we ended up showing them kind of what that looked like. And basically every year starting our budget, we had about $1 million gap to fill anyway. Well, this was saying now we have about $1 million more than that to fill. So what are we going to do? And what tools are we going to use to do that? So we strategically placed all of our department heads at tables. It was really funny because we had done some background research on kind of people's personality types. Like we did this true colors test, which, you know, describes people as a color. And then so we put them we put different colored people at the same table so they would have different kind of ways to think. And so we were kind of hoping that would spark some conversation and stuff. And it sure did. So they all started talking, and then using the resource alignment tool from PVB, I had printed out packets of where everyone's programs sat in quartiles for each of the basic program attribute questions. So basically what we did is we asked them the basic program attribute questions that you can find on the RAD tool or the resource alignment tool. And in asking them those questions, they could see exactly where their programs lined up. So they could say, oh, this is a quartile 4 in my area, but in, like, for instance, the DA has like the DARE program, the Drug Assistance Reviews Education Program. Well, they're doing the DARE program, and the police could also be doing the DARE program. They also have an education and outreach person who isn't doing that program. So, you know, you had people talking about those kinds of partnerships within the communities, and it really started to break down the silos of departments. And you had, by the end of it, we had like the medical examiner getting up from his table and like running to the DA and talking to him about, you know, how we can partner services. And it was just really cool. So that exercise was awesome. And it was pretty successful. What happened at the end was everyone wrote up a white paper basically describing, you know, in what did you learn from this? And in a fiscal scenario, a fiscal crisis, what would you do? And so they kind of took what they learned from it and wrote what they would do in that scenario. Now, we did a caveat. Obviously, we're not going to use this to like defund your program, or like, you know, we're not going to take your department and be like, oh, now you said you could get rid of this, now we can get rid of it. No, we didn't do that at all. But it was something when a recession hits or when COVID hit, we actually had a starting point to look at programmatically what departments were doing and how we can just start to have conversations around how important each program is. So it was really, really interesting to have those white papers handy when COVID hit, especially when everything was still unknown.
Epic. I mean, just a couple of